Thank you for joining the Doctor Whisperer. I am your host, Sharon Feckety, and I am happy to bring you a show where we talk about the business of medicine. I hope that you enjoy it. Please feel free to share, subscribe, and pass it on. Enjoy the show. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. Did you want to stop? Let me stop.
Yeah, I just want now already.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. I am excited, which I hope you are too, to learn more about this wonderful pediatrician. His name is Dr. David Berger. And not only is he a pediatrician, but he has been for more than 25 years. He went into private practice since in 1997, which that was a long time ago.
It was.
And right. And also he opened holistic pediatrics and family care, and then opened up Holistic Relief Clinic in 2016. So that's a lot for us to learn about in a short amount of time, but I'm very excited to hear more. So welcome to the show, Dr. Berger.
Thank you. It's so great to talk with you and to share with your audience.
Yeah. So tell me, I'm going to make an assumption first, and you'll correct me, of course, but there's not a lot of doctors that come out of med school and just decide to go into private practice. They're usually in the hospital or they join a huge conglomerate. And then they're like, you know what? I hate this corporate crap. I'm breaking out. I'm going out on my own. But you have been on your own for so long. So could you give me a little history on that?
Yeah, sure. So I did my pediatric residency at Tampa General. That's where I finished in 1997. I had always had an interest in natural medicine and holistic medicine. At least, that started during my residency. And thankfully, the Department of Pediatrics at Tampa General USF gave me permission to start using herbs and natural remedies as part of the clinic that we would run there. So as most people, you're right, after 3 years of residency, most people will either go on to get a hospital job or they'll go to work for usually some large group. Sometimes it's a smaller group, but yeah, certainly nobody goes out on their own to start off with.
You rebel.
Yeah. So I actually did join a medium size. This is over in Palm Beach. I moved over to the Palm Beach area and in West Palm and there was about 5 other doctors, a few other nurse practitioners. I was told after 8 months that I was causing too much chaos in their practice because I was teaching people things that they weren't being taught otherwise, like don't take antibiotics because you have a virus, something really radical such as that. I certainly happy to talk more about my view in terms of individual approaches to medicine and my strong belief in choice and the ability for a person to have autonomy over their own body. And literally they said to me one day, you keep on telling people don't take antibiotics because they had a virus, and you're right. But then they come back and we write a prescription for an antibiotic, and they're like, why are you writing an antibiotic prescription? Dr. David explained that I have a virus and I shouldn't be taking antibiotics. And so as opposed to conforming with what actually the times were, because that recommendation was certainly mainstream pediatrics coming out of residency,
right.
They decided that I shouldn't be there. But I was fortunate that there was a second practice in the area who was actually looking for somebody who had more my skill set, and they were very gracious in having me join. And then after a couple of years there, I had a chance to open up with my friend a full holistic type of practice. And then fast forward to 2005, and that's actually when we opened up Holistic Pediatrics, which then became Holistic Pediatrics and Family Care when enough adults asked me to help them out that I said, okay, I would do that.
I love it. I love it. And I really appreciate the story behind it, because I know that most doctors just don't do it. It almost doesn't feel like a choice. Well, first of all, you have so many damn loans to pay back. So, venturing out on your own at first is just really very difficult. And since this is the show about the business of medicine, it's important that, there's doctors like you that can show you can do it. Actually, you can say, I'm not going to conform. I'm going to play the game for a little while, but my future goal is to actually go out and do this the way I want to practice medicine, because I'm just going to, again, assume that you went into the practice of medicine because you wanted to help people.
Yeah. And even more so, I went into the practice of medicine because I wanted to be a pediatrician.
Mhm.
Supposedly, when I was 5 years old, I declared to my pediatrician that I was going to be just like him one day, and he then
Oh,
became my mentor. And it was kind of like, I mean, even like my first day of medical school, like they say, like, what, are you here to be a doctor? I'm like, no, I'm here to be a pediatrician. And so it was kind of
love
like, it
it.
was always that thing. I had the most amazing relationship with him. He was like a member of the family, a trusted adult, somebody who cared. I'm like, this is what I want to do. I want to have these relationships with people. I want to take care of when they grow up. I want to take care of their kids. I now actually have a 3-generation family that I'm taking care of all of them. And
Okay.
so and 2 of them were both from birth. So I mean, I take care of a lot of 3-generation families, but this one actually, the daughter and the granddaughter were actually patients of mine since birth also. So it's kind of neat
Oh,
to see
it's
that.
so sweet. I love it.
Yeah.
And I will share, personally that, I worked in adult medicine in New York before I moved to Tampa Bay, Florida. And when I got into pediatrics, I was like, wow, this is like a totally different world. Like you guys are so nice and, you're fun and you're a little more playful and you really, well, I mean, you're working with children and molding these children. So it's such an important job. So tell me a little bit, Doc, about how, to me, because I work with a lot of integrative medicine docs, I'm very used to this conversation. I love this conversation, but how it's a very strong determination to say, you know what, I'm going to practice medicine the way I really believe it. Cause it's a risk, even though you believe in it, there's a lot of money that you have to pour into it. You have to hire people, you have to get a building, the whole 9 yards. So why don't you talk me through a little bit about what that was like?
Yeah. So my original workings very early on was working with families with autism,
Okay.
looking for underlying reasons why, root cause types of things, gut health, immunological health. Certainly things have expanded a lot in the couple of decades that passed there. But, so you help a kid with autism and word gets out pretty fast. And
Yes.
so, I started getting these clusters. At the time I was in West Palm, and I had, then I had a Miami pod of people who came up, and then I ended up with an Orlando pod, and then I had a Tampa pod people came over. Then I ended up with a Peruvian pod, and then an England pod, and a Moscow pod. And like, we never did any kind
Right.
of self-promotion or advertising. It was just
Yeah.
one kid, and then it kind of just spread that way. And I was always, I was also one of the few doctors, as well as many of them weren't pediatricians, in the nutritional autism movement
Mhm.
who didn't have a child with autism that they needed to set out to fix. I was just a pediatrician. I'm like, well, thankfully at Tampa General, I was given a very, very strong foundation about
Mhm.
B vitamin metabolism, about breastfeeding, about not using antibiotics. I mean, we would be applauded the next day if we were able to determine that overnight that a kid came in, but it was a virus. We didn't start antibiotics. Maybe we just started some fluids, etc. They would applaud us for not starting antibiotics. So there was a really, really great foundation for me to build on. And then a book called, actually, the first it was a journal article in our trade journal called 7 Herbs Every Pediatrician Should Know About. And the author, who then went on to Harvard to start the first holistic pediatric subdivision, came out with a book called The Holistic Pediatrician, where she looked at the 25 most common medical conditions in kids and looked at it from an Eastern medicine perspective, a Western medicine perspective, a plant-based perspective, a chiropractic perspective, any studies that were available. And the department said, well, you can use anything. That's our trade journal. And so you can go ahead and do that. So that's kind of like really where my foundations started. So even when I got out of my residency, I'd been doing it for like about 1.5 years. And then things just grew because families then started bringing things to me like, hey, we heard about this type of test. Can you check for candida? Sure, I know how to treat that. I mean, I've written for fluconazole enough times, then I learned after about, the importance of probiotics and the importance of the diet and the other parts of the microbiome. So I keep on learning. That's a main thing for me is like, anybody, who feels, okay, I've learned enough, I'm done, they should probably retire.
I'm so curious as to how you are such an evolved physician. I mean that, of course, as a compliment. And I ask that because I remember even when I was managing the pediatric practice, and I used to do these newborn, at the hospital. They had, oh my God, it's slipping my mind what it was called. It was so long ago. But anyway, we would have the pediatrician come into the hospital. They would do a talk, and all of these pregnant moms would come to my table. And I don't have any clinical background, but I do know that people loved the doctors, and they would ask me questions about, like, about the shots and about nutrition and stuff like that. And I would just say, listen, you really, everybody's different. So you just have to come in and have a newborn conference, and you probably shouldn't stop there. You should probably interview doctors to see who's going to be right for you, because you're going to spend, like, I don't know, 18 years at least, right? With this person. That's a big, big, big decision. So, and I was always fascinated that, like, these women that were carrying these beautiful babies inside of them, they had the nursery picked out, they knew about the baby shower, they knew the colorings, but they didn't have a pediatrician picked out yet, right? So that was always fascinating to me. But I do know, as you, of course, know, being in this business as long as you have, and it's medicine, you're caring for others, but it also is a business. And it is amazing how closed-minded some physicians can be to being open to, when a patient suggests something for you to look into. Like, I'm like, oh, I love him already. Like, that's really, because that is the roadblock sometimes I feel like that people have, that they're not being treated as individuals. And now I'll stop talking so you can.
Yeah. So individuality is all what it's about. Different people, whether it's from different ethnic backgrounds, different beliefs, things they've learned, maybe things that they've seen help or hurt their family members. And so I just can't look at medicine or healthcare as a one size fits all type of thing. And so, that's why we lay everything out on the table. I always like to give people options. I strongly advocate for informed consent, not just consent, but informed consent. You need to be informed before you consent to something, and looking at the different options that are available, talking through them, weighing the risks, weighing the benefits, and then coming up with a plan. Some people like to do things more mainstream. Some people like to do things more alternative. I keep one foot in each boat. And so I'm able to play back and forth, and, people may be at different parts of their lives where, yes, certainly I have patients who feel uncomfortable following the CDC vaccine schedule to start off with. Of course, I present it to them. Certainly I do see more people who choose not to follow it, because also I'm the only pediatrician in town really that's willing to work through families, and some families choose not to. Some families choose to prioritize things versus the others. But I always want to talk to them about, okay, well, let's talk about this. How dangerous is this disease? How common is this disease? And we kind of just work it through from there. But really, I want to meet people where they are at. And that's part of what I also need to do, is assess where they're at. Sometimes they don't even know where they're at. They just like, hey, I'm all new to this, or other people like, yeah, you've seen my kids, you've seen my other 5 kids, so we know what we want to do here. Yeah. So it really just depends on what a parent wants and needs, and then I want to be there to facilitate it, because as I tell them, I hear what you're saying, I'm here to take care of your child unless you become my patient also. Although realistically speaking, the moms kind of quasi become my patients, because you have to take care of the mom and talk them through everything as well. But but we want to talk about the risks versus benefits and everything, and then but we ultimately come up with a plan, and ultimately I defer to what a family thinks is best for their child.
We interrupt this awesome podcast to share with you about our sponsor, TIE Technology. TIE Technology was founded with the thought that every customer deserves exceptional customer services. So if you know of any company that has a phone system where the auto attendant doesn't really sound good, you press 1 and you think you're going to go to a live person, but you end up with a broken recording, it's probably time that you call TIE Technology. And if you mention this podcast, you will get the first 3 months for free. So make sure you mention the Dr. Whisperer podcast show. Check them out. Are you still running your medical practice like it's 1990? Well, what about Riva Global Medical Virtual Assistants? A medical virtual assistant, I promise you, is the way to run your medical practice today. Why? Because you can save, thousands of dollars. No more paying for health insurance, no more worrying about office space. You also have trained professionals. These wonderful human beings get trained, and they have a client service manager that makes sure that your VA that you're working with for your practice is hitting all the goals that you need to make sure that your practice is run efficiently and friendly. Check out Riva Global Medical Virtual Assistants today. Right. And I love that because, it is all individual. And I always love the opportunity to educate somebody, right? So even if they feel one certain way very strongly, it's great that you're able to listen, because sometimes I feel like that's a big broken piece in healthcare, is that, it's like everybody's waiting for their turn to speak. And when it comes to medicine, it really is so important to hear why somebody might be conflicted about following the schedule as it's laid out, and to hear that and really hear it, and then provide, the education that, I don't know, you spent years and years to obtain.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about Holistic Real Leaf Clinic.
Yes.
Yes, medical cannabis as a treatment option. So
Yeah.
I love that.
So yeah, so holistic with a W, relief, RELEAF. So we kind of played off of that word some.
Right.
So as many people know, in 2016 is when the cannabis laws, when became constitutional, when we voted for that. 2 years prior to that is when CBD became legal under certain circumstances as well. For me, I know that most doctors kind of got in a freak out mode very quickly when this happened, but I had been using herbs in children for 15 years by then. So for me, it was just another herb, because I knew how to put together an individualized, titrating, gradual, low and slow type of treatment plan. And so I didn't have that fear factor that a lot of people did, because I knew how to figure these things out. Obviously, it's not like there was any textbook that one could use as to how much you should give somebody with this particular condition when they weigh this much body weight. It's really a much more individualized type of thing. So, we focus very much, and we see adults also, but our focus is really on patient education. So whenever no problem, whenever
Sorry, Charlie Brown just wants to be a part of the show, Doc. You know how that goes.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. I'm sure if my Daisy was here, she'd be doing the same thing.
Right. Continue.
Yeah. So we really focus on patient education. We spend a majority of our time, we pre-screen our patients, so that way, we don't want someone to show up if they don't qualify. So we go through the process. We get the medical records ahead of time. We have screening questionnaires, all those things, because we want people to come in and not spend their money unless we know they're qualified. So I spend the most of our time educating people on the different types of strains, the different ways of taking it. We get into terpenes, different cannabinoids, but whenever they're done working with me or one of my other physicians, they then meet with our patient educator, who not just gets them the certification, but then really gets into the details. All of the dispensaries, or most of them, have actually their own shelf in our education room, where we can walk around and show them the different types of products that are available, where they can get them from, etc. And we make ourselves available in between the certification appointments. So they only have to be certified every 7 months, but we don't charge for questions in between. We want them to reach out to us. I've gotten really good at med management. I can do med management the way that a lot of psychiatrists and pain doctors do it for that. But I can, if a family is able to say to me, or a patient says, hey, this is what I'm taking, this is the benefit, this is what I'm not seeing. I've gotten to a point now where probably good 80% of the time I can make a product recommendation, take it this way, maybe you're dosing it differently, and make things better. So that's kind of one of the fun things for me also.
I love it. And there's no age cutoff for you, right? I see that you were able to work with patients under the age of 18.
Yes, the youngest patient I've ever certified is at 18 months of age, when it was a patient with cancer.
Wow. Okay. Well, that'll stop me in my tracks. Just doing that is just
right.
It's a big job that you have.
It is. But also, if I can make one other comment about that. So, because I always start people on CBD. We talk about some of the other cannabinoids first, like CBN, which can be helpful for sleep, and CBG, which should be more helpful for anxiety and pain. And then THC kind of becomes the last option for our patients. But, people who are seeking this out are people who have already been through all the other medical options for them, and they're still needing help. So this isn't supposed to be a first line therapy. It's kind of more, CBD and CBG and those types of things. I think that could be a first line, but THC should really be a last line option.
Yeah, I'm really happy that you said that, because we certainly don't want everybody to think, Dr. Berger's just out there like, come on in, everybody, let's get you lined up. Yeah. All right. So I want to know also how it works in your practice. You've mentioned other practitioners. So are you by yourself? Do you have help, other nurse practitioners? What does it look like?
Yeah. So although everything falls under the umbrella of David S. Berger, MD, PA, that is the name of the actual business, and we have two subdivisions. One's holistic pediatrics and family care, where we do primary care for adults and kids, and we do more consultative type of, more nutritional, deeper dive types of things, and then holistic relief. So in holistic relief, Only MDs or DOs can do the certification. So I have 2 other physicians who work part-time who do that when I'm not in the clinic.
Mhm.
On the other side, I'm the only physician. I have 2 other pediatric nurse practitioners.
Mhm.
I have a I have a family medicine nurse practitioner, and I have a family medicine physician's assistant. And then, of course, we have lots of MAs and front office staff and all of that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm just excited because I'm thinking of all the people I want to refer business to because there really is there's a big need. There's just a big need for physicians that are open to really listening. And because I know a lot of people in my life are just, they're not so, it's not about the drugs. Like I work with an alternative psychiatrist. So yes, he's a psychiatrist, but he also believes like IV therapy is fantastic and massage therapy can be beneficial. So we really do have to treat the individual, not me, because you don't want me treating anything. You just want me to be the host of the show. Otherwise, everybody would be in trouble. But it is a lot to take on something like this. So for you, just to help other doctors or nurse practitioners that might be first starting out, because this is the show about the business of medicine, I like to put clinicians together. Like I have dinner scheduled for 2 of my docs tomorrow night, because sometimes I feel like you guys it feels so lonely sometimes when you do break out and you do your own thing and you believe in it and you just have to keep going. Can you talk a little bit about that, what it was like for you? Because you're an entrepreneur, like it or not.
And and also part of it, so if I can also quickly put in for my third business, which is Dr. David MD, which is it's a company focusing on health education and choices. I have I do a lot of social media stuff. My YouTube channel, which is also Dr. David MD, we just hit 1,000 subscribers on that. So I typically put 3 different videos out per week. I have a show called Your Health, Your Choice. I have another show called Ask Dr. David. We throw some burger bites along the ways. We do some reaction videos as well. And that's really helped. But part of Dr. David MD is not just educating consumers, health consumers, because we do that because we realize that not everybody can I be their doctor for, especially if they're out of state, unless they come travel, but also to help educate physicians. I'm on faculty at the University of South Florida, and prior to COVID, things are kind of still kind of getting wrapped up now. But for years, I would have nurse practitioner students rotate through my office. Medical students can rotate through my office. I've had physicians rotate through my office just so that they can learn about what it is that we do, and so I kind of make myself available because I love teaching. I love being able to spread the word. I know that certain things that I know, you learn it over 20 years. It's not like you can just pick it up. But, there are other places like, there's the Medical Academy of Pediatrics Special Needs MAPS, which is that really focuses on the stuff in the pediatric world. There's A4M in the adult world. So, certainly there's an education process that's involved with all of this before one can be confident too.
Yeah, totally. And I think that it's great that you have this open-mindedness that other doctors that I know, because all of the ones that I have worked with have kind of broken out of that corporate model and taken that chance. And then you get, just like you were mentioning, you get these hubs of people coming in because they hear about you and they're like, oh my God, you're like 1 in a million. And it doesn't have to be that way. We don't want it to be that, but it can be a very courageous, let's not say scary, but a very courageous thing to do. So I applaud you for doing that. Is there anything else that you want the audience to know before we wrap it up today, Doctor?
No, main thing is, I'm glad to help educate your audience and to let them know that there are people like me out there. It's nice because, in a long way also because we're not dealing with corporate medicine. We don't take insurances. I tell people we bill kind of the way lawyers do, by FaceTime, not by the schedule that they're scheduled for. But, kind of that mom and pop type of thing that like happened a couple generations ago, where when you call at night, you're going to get us. You don't get an answering service says press 1 if you're puking, press 2 if you're coughing, and some random nurse who has no idea about your practice, etc. So, when you come in here, people just come into our office just to hang out sometimes. It's kind of like a little country, a little clubhouse. Kind of, if you look at our office, if you see the pictures on our site, it's not looking like a clinic. There's this great area in front with in that kind of everybody's circled around all of our offices. I have this great sea life artwork around. A lot of people don't even realize, kids don't even realize they went to a doctor like, hey, when am I seeing the doctor? Like, you just did, type of thing. everything, and even our vaccine room and our blood draw and everything like that. We really want to focus on making the kid, the parent, comfortable, because let's face it, it can be scary going to a doctor's office. I've never worn a white coat since the day I left my residency at Tampa General. I do not own one. So it's just, we're trying to do things a little bit different, but it's all about the patient.
Yeah, well, that is at the end of the day who we're all trying to help. So even if we're talking about the business of medicine, if the business doesn't run well, who gets affected? The patient. So I really appreciate all that you're doing to help others. Thank you so much. We'll have all the information of how to contact Dr. Berger and all of his entrepreneurial journeys in the show notes. I would check them out on YouTube, and we look forward to having you back here again.
Oh, I'd love to do deeper dives with you anytime.
Awesome. Thanks, Doc. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
So don't forget, if you mention that you've seen the show or listened to it on the podcast, mention Thai Technology and you will get 3 months for free. They're the best. So if you want to party like it's 1999, but run your medical practice like it's 2022, don't forget to check out Reva Global Medical Virtual Assistants.